suss out and sniff out issues on the ground and get, you guessed it, point blank with you. I'm Evon.
And I'm Amanda. Tonight, Point Blank is going military. We're going to discuss the changing face of war, and we're talking about urban warfare.
That's right, and in our living room tonight, we have defense expert Dr Bernard Loo from the Rajaratnam School of International Studies. He will cast some light on the rise of urban warfare. Well, but before we begin, we know that SAF has gone 3G, or third generation. So what does that actually mean?
Well, let's take a look.
The third generation Singapore Armed Forces all about? Well, the third gen SAF is first of all capable of a spectrum of operations. It's able to fight decisively in war and respond in peacetime for counter-terrorism, peacekeeping and humanitarian aid. It's also focused on people and values, and it's integrated and networked, with land, air and naval forces working together. And there'll be holistic advancements with improvements in areas including administration and training. The third gen SAF is technologically advanced, employing state-of-the-art technology. The third gen SAF focuses on three key areas: technology, restructuring and training. New weapon systems are being implemented to complement the soldiers. These include the refurbished Leopard tanks and 24 F-15 jets, which will be delivered next year. The Navy's missile gunboats have also been replaced by 6 new frigates: RSS Formidable, Intrepid, Steadfast, Tenacious, Stalwart and RSS Supreme. New technologies such as precision strike and unmanned vehicles are also being employed. In terms of restructuring, the Air Force has been reorganized from 6 formations to 5 new commands, while the Army has introduced a new command and control system for its divisions and brigades. There's more emphasis on integration where air, sea and ground forces work together. This means more combined operations. Apart from technology, more effort is also being put into training the soldiers. Scholarships are offered to officers, warrant officers and specialists to further their education. More opportunities are also given to national servicemen to go into commander training. In a nutshell, this is the third generation SAF.
Well guys, our guest tonight is Dr Bernard Loo, who is an assistant professor at the Institute of Defence and Strategic Studies in the Rajaratnam School of International Studies. He's also the coordinator of the Revolution in Military Affairs program. Tell me more about the RMA program, Dr. Loo.
The RMA program was basically set up to examine this understanding, or this argument that had emerged back in 1991 that in the wake of what was then Operation Desert Storm, we were beginning to see very radical changes in the way militaries were organized, the way they conducted their business, the way war was being fought, and that this particular historical episode basically represented a very radical shift from previous patterns, as a result of which they used the term revolution. It was meant to be revolutionary change. The military organization was meant to be something, was meant to be transformed into something very, very different from its predecessor.
Because it was just a different landscape, a different battlefield that they were fighting on.
It's not so much that it was a different battlefield. The landscape didn't necessarily change.
No?
What basically happened was that precision had come in. Not just precision, but a whole range of communications technologies which we never had before now suddenly became available. And not just communications technologies, but the information processing. That was the real key part of the technological changes that were happening. The information processing not now theoretically allowed you to not only take in the information, but make sense of it almost immediately. And information processing then gave you greater precision when it came to targeting. To give you an example, in the Second World War, you sometimes had entire squadrons of aircraft dropping tens of thousands of tons of bombs just to be able to destroy one factory building. 9 times out of 10, they missed. The standard scatter pattern, as we called it, was spread across several kilometers. In the first Gulf War back in 1991, we were increasingly beginning to see single weapon, single shot, single destruction. That was something which we had never seen before. So all these things were telling us that military organizations were now on the cusp of something quite different, something quite radically different from its predecessors. At least that was the argument that was beginning to emerge in the defense realm.
Okay. Anything to add?
Well, yes, okay. Well, we know that the face of warfare is indeed changing. Not just, we're not talking about just Singapore, although our context is really Singapore because we want to know how our defense is going. But really, urban warfare is largely different from conventional warfare, isn't it? I mean, there are so many more concerns to think about. There are buildings, there are civilians.
I hear the term two-dimensional war in the past, and now it's a three-dimensional war.
Yeah. Added complications.
Well, two-dimensional war simply means you have to worry about what's in the front or the back of you and what's on the side of you.
Yeah. And on top.
Now, increasingly, you've got to worry about what's on top as well. That's the whole point that the 3G SAF was supposed to bring about. This idea that in the past, right, back even as recent back as the war in Vietnam, if you were fighting a ground battle at that particular point in time, well, you have to worry about your opponent who's basically in the front or the back or somewhere to the side of you, two-dimensional. You almost never had to worry about somebody coming in above you.
That's right.
If you were really, really lucky, then you had to worry about somebody coming in above you. And I'm being a bit sarcastic in that sense, I suppose. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're in a land operation and you're fighting somebody at this point in time and you call for air support, 9 times out of 10 air support probably doesn't turn up because the air boys are basically saying, hang on a minute, we've got other things to do, we've got other things to worry about, and supporting you guys on the ground is not really our primary function. That's changed. That's why now we talk about the 3 dimensions of warfare. When you talk about urban operations, however, what you're really talking about is something else that's happening, and this is something else that's happening actually outside of the defense realm. But what's basically happening is that throughout the entire 20th century, we saw people increasingly moving from the countryside into the urban centers, and then we saw the growth of cities, and even existing cities started growing larger and larger and larger, and you now have a whole series of metropolis spread around the world where their physical dimensions are bigger than Singapore as an island, right? This is a particular phenomenon that's happening globally, and it therefore means that for the military organization, increasingly, its likely area of operations is no longer going to be
like the jungles and
no longer in the open.
It's no longer going to be
the urban jungles now.
Increasingly the urban jungle. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. And that's something that they have to begin to come to terms with.
Beautiful.
That's right. Well, for now we'll go for a break, but we'll be right back with more from the guys in green. So stay with us.